Out of all the golden figures throughout history, one of the most interesting and principled would have to be Tecumseh, otherwise known as Shooting Star. The beginning of Tecumseh's life was full of trauma. At a young age, Tecumseh's father, Puck was brutally murdered by white frontiersmen. With though a task, Tecumseh's mother was shaken by her husband's death and left her children in the care of her better-suited sister, Tecumseh. While Tecumseh was raised by Tecumseh, his older brother, Tecumseh, mentored him and taught him almost everything he knew. Tecumseh didn't live to see the many accomplishments of his brother. Tenskwatawa, whose name translates to open door, was another one of Tecumseh's brothers, as well as a popular spiritual leader known as the Prophet. The Prophet claimed that he had been visited by the Shawnee god. According to Tenskwatawa, the Great Spirit would reward the Shawnee by driving the whites out if they gave up all white customs and products, including tobacco and gunpowder, and also to join together as one Indian nation. William Henry Harrison, who was the governor of the Indiana Territory during the early 1800s, grew fear towards Tenskwatawa and his immense following. He dared the Prophet to prove his power by forming a miracle of some sort. Tecumseh knew that his brother was in dire need of assistance. He recognized that there would be a solar eclipse soon and urged the Prophet to use this as his miracle. After this brilliant demonstration, Harrison was convinced that the Prophet wasn't a fake, but that didn't stop him from trying to claim the land being used by the Shawnee. William Henry Harrison wrote the Treaty of Fort Wayne, a treaty that would surrender 3 million acres of the Wabash Indians' land to the United States government. This infuriated Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa. They wanted to remain independent from American affairs and verbally discredited the treaties and those who had signed them. Tecumseh had dealt with enough insolence and decided to meet with Harrison himself. Tecumseh revived a popular idea while debating with William Henry Harrison. He spoke of an idea that property is shared and owned by no man and is to be used by anyone who needs it. Now that Tenskwatawa had the Shawnee convinced that he was really visited by the Master of Life, Tecumseh could execute his plan. Tecumseh planned to drive out all the whites by uniting every Indian tribe into one American nation. His initial struggle began while he was away uniting the tribes. He needed someone to be chief in his place, so he entrusted Tenskwatawa with the position of temporary chief. Since everyone was convinced that Tenskwatawa was a prophet, they were certain that he would guide them and keep them safe. Tecumseh gave his brother one rule: do not attack the whites, it will only destroy our tribe. The prophet, lacking the military skills and strategic abilities of his brother, decided to go against his brother's warnings and attack a group of Anglo settlers. He claimed that the Master of Life had come to him and that he would lead the Shawnee to victory against the American settlers. The Shawnee attacked Harrison's men before daybreak on the morning of November 7, 1811. Harrison's army had almost 1,000 infantry and cavalry soldiers. The battle raged on heavily, and the American army suffered heavy losses. The Indians' losses are impossible to know because they carried off most of their dead and wounded immediately. Harrison guessed that at least 40 Indian warriors were killed. This is now known as the Battle of Tippecanoe. Tecumseh tried to resurrect his Indian Confederation, but many of the warriors had already died or refused to join him again. After the loss of his most trusted friend, Tecumseh dreamt of returning to his homeland. This led him to ally with the British against the United States. This alliance was forged on a desperate promise to return Tecumseh's homeland. Tecumseh compromised his own principles by joining British forces because of this promise. The promise that he sacrificed so much for was never delivered. The British were retreating into Canada when Tecumseh and his limited warriors joined them. Tecumseh was killed in the afternoon of October 5, 1813. He was 45 years old when this occurred. No one knows exactly where he fell or who killed him. At least 24 white men took credit for pulling the trigger that killed Tecumseh. William Henry Harrison built up his reputation as the vanquisher of Tecumseh. Richard Mentor Johnson, the country's 9th vice president, also claimed to have defeated the Shawnee chief. Tecumseh's legacy has grown exponentially since his death. Once viewed as an enemy to settlers, he is now celebrated as an Indian hero. Tecumseh may not be as famous as other historical figures, but he is certainly intriguing. You now know about his life, beliefs, and mystery surrounding his death. He suffered a great conflict when his brothers sabotaged the alliance, and he came to a compromise when he allied with the British to save the surviving Shawnee. And while he may not have been perfect, he had principles and he kept them, which is what makes him another golden figure in history today.